Hi, I'm Lauren.
And I'm Derek. And we're from the Curiosity Shoppe.
And we are going to be making a takeaway placemat. So this is what the placemat looks like when it's all rolled up and you can just toss it in your bag. Basically, it's just two large pieces of fabric. We did a print on the inside and a solid on the outside with a little contrasting pocket here and a ribbon to tie it up, and then you can use it as a napkin as well.
And then you can just throw it in the wash when it's dirty and reuse it over and over again.
So when you're choosing the fabrics, you can play with different patterns and solids. We did this one with a pattern inside and a solid on the outside with another contrasting pocket. This one is just the same fabric on front and back with a pattern pocket. And then you can use any color of ribbon. You could use a thin rope or yarn, just as long as it's machine washable.
So we're going to start first, I guess, by showing you the materials. It's very simple, but you're going to start with two pieces of fabric, and they are 20 inches wide by 15 inches tall. So we have those two. One is going to be the front of your placemat, one is going to be the back. And then we have another piece of fabric here that is for the pocket, which is where you're going to put your utensils.
And then we're going to need a little piece of ribbon to tie it all up. So the first step then, as Derek was saying, is to cut out two large rectangles that are going to be the front and back of the placemat. And we're going to do this pretty pear pattern on the inside and then just a plain piece of linen on the back. So while Derek's cutting that large piece, I am going to take, this is a little template that measures 6 inches by 6 inches, and we are going to trace it onto this contrasting piece of fabric for the little utensil pocket. So I'm just going to take a little piece of chalk and mark a square here.
All right.
This is our pocket. We're gonna sew down the top seam so that it's not raw. Since they're all the same length, you can choose any side you want, and that'll be the top, unless there's a pattern on it, and make sure you're doing the top one. Fold it down about 1/4 inch.
So just pressing down 1/4 inch. And you only have to do this on the top seam.
And then another 1/2 inch. Then I'm gonna run this through the sewing machine about 3/8 of an inch from the top so that we catch all the fabric in there. And I backstitched at either end.
Great.
So the next thing to do is to fold over the other 3 raw edges about 1/4 inch with the right side of the fabric facing down.
And then the last one is going to be the bottom of the pocket.
Great. There's our little pocket. So we're going to take the inside piece, the large inside piece, and then we just should pin it to the inside piece of our placemat, and we'll stitch it down.
Great.
So we have to run just a couple pins on either side, and then we're only going to sew around the bottom, the sides and the bottom, and leave the top open, of course. So there's our pocket pinned in place. We're just going to take the sewing machine and sew about 1/8 inch, or as close as possible to the edge, all the way around those 3 sides. I'm going to backstitch at the beginning and the end of the seam so that if you tug on the pocket a little bit, there's no worry about it ripping off. So we just go forward and backward. We're going to go again, taking out the pins as we go. And when we get to about 1/8 inch away from the bottom, we're going to slow down a little bit, make sure the needle's all the way in, lift up the foot of the machine and pivot it 90 degrees, and then go along the bottom. The pocket is on, and since it's just one large pocket and we're planning on putting about 3 different utensils in here, we're going to sew 2 channels, just straight stitch through all the layers so that we have 3 teeny little pockets, one for a fork, one for a knife, and one for a spoon.
And to do that, you can just easily use a little ruler and a piece of tailor's chalk and just make a light little line where you think you might want your channels.
Great. And again, we're backstitching at the beginning and the end of each seam. So when you're using a sewing machine, there's always a little tail of thread at the beginning and end of every seam that you just have to trim off.
And this tailor's chalk rubs right off, and especially it'll come out in the wash the first time you wash your placemat. So we're going to be talking a lot about right side and wrong side. So for people who don't sew a lot, Lauren, do you want to tell us what right side means?
The right side is the pretty side. This is the wrong side. So we're going to put the right side up.
So now we get our ribbon that we have pre-measured and cut to about 30 inches. And we are going to fold it in half, end to end. And we're going to pin it to the outer edge of the placemat on the right side, facing in, just like this. And what do we do, about halfway in the middle?
Halfway is good, yeah. So then we're going to take our back piece. This has really no right or wrong side because it's just linen, so it's the same on both sides. And we're going to sandwich the ribbon in. So when you're pinning something and you're going to run a seam over it, it's a good idea to put the pins in perpendicular to your stitch line so that as the machine is going over it, they're really easy to pull out. So we're going to stitch all the way around and then flip the whole thing right side out. So we have to make sure to leave an opening of about 4 inches. So I'm going to do that here, and I think I'm going to mark it with a piece of chalk so I don't accidentally seal the whole thing. So we'll do that. And make sure that our ribbon is pinned in over here like that. Okay, here we go.
So now you can see we have the right sides together. That's the back side of the placemat.
And this, we're just going to do a 1/2 inch seam, which is really easy on your machine. But the first thing we're going to do is change the color of our thread. Since we're using a light fabric now, we'll just put a different color thread on the machine. So now we're just going to stitch all the way around, leaving about 4 inches. I'll start on this side, a 1/2 inch away from the raw edge. I'm going to back stitch the beginning and the end of the seam and remove the pins as I go. All right. When you get to the corners, sew until you're about 1/2 inch away from the end. Make sure your needle is down, and then you can lift the head and pivot it 90 degrees. And then put it down again, and then sew another straight line.
Okay, so this is the last turn.
This is the last turn.
And Lauren has marked a spot where she's going to stop so that we have about a 4 inch
I'm gonna put my pin there.
gap. And this gap is going to allow us to turn the whole thing inside out. And it hides all of our rough edges. And it looks really nice.
So here's our inside out placemat. And here's the opening. Before we flip it right side out, we're just going to trim the excess fabric off of all the corners to remove some bulk. Just like this right down here. Just cut off all these little triangles. Pretty close to the line of stitching, but not over any stitches.
So then you just take it all and you push it through this 4 inch hole that you've created. Shake it out. Okay. So the tricky part are the corners, and we have some chopsticks that we can use.
We brought some bamboo chopsticks, just little disposable chopsticks, and we can use one of them to get in there and just kind of get all the fabric out of the corners.
And then we can just get these right in the corner right there and poke out all the corners.
So you can see that since we put the ribbon on the inside and we stitched over it, now it is on the outside.
And it's secured in there. So now we're going to press the whole thing down once again, and we're going to make sure that we fold the rough edges of the opening down as well.
So this is the opening, and we're just folding that under a 1/2 inch, and then when we top stitch it, that's what's going to close. And we're just going to press it.
Okay.
Great, and you can see that since we sewed the ribbon on the inside, it's already nice and secure in the seam. So we're just gonna take the sewing machine and do a line of top stitching. And top stitching is just when you do a line of stitching that you can see all the way around to kind of secure the two sides together. And this is just gonna be all the way around, just like we did on the inside. This is gonna be 1/4 inch away from the side. And I'm just using the side of my sewing machine foot as a guide. There's also a little ruler. Okay. So there's the finished placemat, front and back. And to carry it with you, you can just kind of fold it up into thirds here and roll it up, catching your utensils in there. And then use this little ribbon to tie it. Awesome. Super cute. Nice one.